as I said, my name is Jan Bielsen. I want to present today's speaker, who is Rune Hansen. I actually know Rune Hansen from, we both are engaged in training from the back of the room trainings. And I met Rune a couple of months ago, I would like to say, face to face. I met him before. And then we started to discuss, or he showed me something about how he worked with some teams. And some of these sessions we have had where we had companies showing what they've done, or people representing companies. People have been very engaged and want to see how others are doing it. I haven't seen Rune's presentation, so maybe that's maybe I'm promising too much. But I thought that would be interesting for the community here to see more and have see some examples of how others are doing stuff. So that was why we invited Rune. I would like to pass the word over to Rune and have him present himself and take us through his experience.
Yes, basically about me, I'm an agile consultant. I've been doing Scrum Mastering, product ownership, product management, all the agile roles basically. What I'm going to show you is actually something that's older than Agile Aarhus. This will all be about team building, and it will be something that happened during the Corona lockdown in a team. And I will also, so basically, I will just share, and then I will tell you a story, and then I will tell you why it works. So, but basically, this is the story about two teams during the Corona, and about how we actually managed to create trust, innovation, cooperation, and team building in a virtual setting. It worked wonders, and basically, you will see how it went on. Now, the guy to the top left, he was a beer enthusiast, and he arranged for us to have a box of beers shipped by postal. This is how it looked like, which is kind of nice present to get during Corona. And we started having a Friday beer where he selected which two beers we were to drink, and then we met off Friday afternoon. Now, the problem here was that we were formed during Corona as part of an IT reorg, and we got the name Team Process Automation and Optimization. That kind of sucked. We couldn't even remember it. So while drinking beer, we started brainstorming. The only name I really can remember from the first brainstorming was Team Angry Nerds. But on Monday, we realized this was maybe not super customer friendly. So we had another brainstorming, and we came up with Team Transformers. And after that, basically, you probably know car cards or something where you say, okay, what is the max speed and stuff like that. And somebody actually found on the web that there has been created the same type of cards, but with transformers. So we started to discussing which transformers each of us was. We were not all allowed to be Megatron. No, you were assigned a transformer that was your teammates basically said resemble your personality the most. So I was assigned Team Bumblebee. And then we agreed that we had to wear our Transformers card as a virtual background for the next week. And as you can see, it crops pretty shitty, but we all had this. And after a week, next Friday, we were a little bit tired of it, so we just got rid of it. And basically, we created this one instead. It's in Danish, but basically what we came out with was, I apologize in advance for Tommy. But then on Tuesday we said, hey, except for Tommy, he just said, I apologize. But then we kind of like, okay, this is not Tommy for a full week. So every morning at our daily stand-up, we decided who screwed up yesterday, and we updated our background accordingly. Now, this is how it looks. As you can see, this thing of having a shared background in a non-virtual setting, your team is basically defined by where in the office space you're located. But in a virtual space, this is how you become a team and not an individual. And as you can see, this guy who wasn't attending on Friday, if you just look at the faces, you can see, okay, I'm not part of the team. And everybody else says, if you want to be part of the team, you want to be a transformer. Another thing about this background, transformers first solve the problem and then write the code, is that that is a statement that actually transforms something in the team. Because we were used to just handling change requests and incidents from ServiceNow. But we started actually approaching the customers to figure out what is the problem you really need to get solved before we started just, so we basically stopped having code handouts from our customers and we start engage very proactively, which changed a lot in this team. So this is it, basically. Now, we got a new Scrum Master, and of course, at this point, we had arranged, we had sent him a team invitation for a Friday meeting, even though he didn't start before Tuesday, including a box of beers. And when he showed up, he had actually drawn this glory on the back wall, and we went with that for the background for the week to come. Now, this is a teammate. He couldn't really attend the Friday bar because he was sailing around the island of Funen. But of course, with a mobile phone, he chipped in. And of course, we went with that background. And it says Transformers is sailing, which has a secondary meaning in Danish. It means that everything's out of control and missing stuff. Now, a new teammate from another team came in, and by this time he was actually aware of what was going on. So he had prepared this, and to be honest, this is the only team's background that was not changed during the meetings. Basically, the way this was done is that we met, opened the first beer, stripped our background, and then everybody started browsing and talking. Because why did you choose that picture and stuff? And shared it in the talk. And that actually meant after an hour or so, we arrived with the background for the new team for the next week. Here's a good example. So as you can see, this thing about browsing pictures, it actually promotes creativity in many ways because you get inspired by others. And this is actually an exercise of creating a product. It's important as you have to wear it for a week and show it to the world, but it's not more important than it's only for a week and then you can change it. Now, this thing about sailing, at this point, instead of just being a dull team, of course, we had to figure out some team, how do we get out sailing? So a couple of weeks later, we got to sail on the boats, as you can see. And at this point, it was really a creative powerhouse where people got ideas and executed as a team on it. Transformers is sailing derudaf means that, oh, we're having fun, we're pretty drunk, and we're just going ahead. Now, this picture had to get in there. It's just a picture that had to create a background. And as you can see, the product owner here, he said Transformers is going that way. And this is a newcomer to the team and says, is that the future? But on the creativity part, somebody found a watermark from the Transformers here. So from that point on, we always had the Transformers watermark as part of it. Pretty nerdy, but the process of creating this was, it was a lot of laugh, a lot of discussion, and we were actually quite proud of what came out of it. Now, here's an example of the process. I put this picture of the Muppet during the hour, and that week we ended up with this background. I hate Transformers. I don't know how we got there. Somebody probably had a grumpy week, and we ended up with this. This is another example. Somebody during the session put this picture up on his screen, and we ended up with a background for that week, which looked like this. So we became better at it, and this actually spilled over to our work as developers as well. it just made, it created definitely trust, and we got basically a more three-dimensional view of each other's, not just as competences, but as people. And conflicts were not really there because we laughed a lot, also while working. Now, at this point, the company, they decided to be more environmentally friendly, so they actually exchanged the lawnmowers with sheep. So this was a no-brainer. In Danish, if a with this, basically this means sheep in Danish. Now, this one was from a period where everybody, most of the team was on vacation, and it basically says, why has Transformers gone on vacation? It's pretty hard as a meeting participant not to be engaged by this. It's very emotional and pretty beautiful in many ways. Now, this is basically the story of Transformers. I just have to see what I got. Yeah. Now, the final, my time in Transformers actually ended on an upbeat note, because we got a sour beer, which is very fruity, and I just asked, hey, can we get a beer made of champagne? And the beer geek said, I don't know. What happened was that a couple of days later, he said, oh, I found some geek in Belgium who brews this, and there's somebody in Copenhagen who actually sells this. So we arranged for this to be sent to us, and on my final day, we actually had a champagne beer. Now, another thing I will say about Transformers is when the Corona lockdown was lifted, our Scrum Master arranged for us to meet in person. The funny thing about that, and that's something about the way our brain work is, I could easily identify all the team members when I met them, but their heads were placed on completely wrong bodies. This guy I thought was really tall. He was a chubby, low guy. And this is basically our brain works like the things we see, and the things we miss, we make up. Now, we had to make, our Scrum Master said we need a vision and a mission, so we basically started brainstorming mission statements on Post-its. It didn't take long before somebody said, hey, let's get it up on the widescreen in Word, and we got all the statements up, and then they started just like a Friday. This sentence is kind of nice, but it needs some of this, and we started writing and stuff, and we ended up with a mission statement says, we improve your daily work environment if you want to play along. And this statement actually meant that the customers who didn't really want to play along, for some reason they sunk into the background, into our backlog. Whereas those who actually were engaged, we knew their business processes, especially those crossing different departments, better than they did. And we actually helped them getting funding and doing a lot of stuff regarding that. Now, our vision statement was a no-brainer. That was basically simplified. And that meant we had ServiceNow, we had Azure DevOps, we had Microsoft 365 and IAM in the team. And this simplify meant that even though the change request was to ServiceNow, we actually decided where in our stack we wanted to build it in terms of maintainability. So they might end up getting a 365 solution in some Power BI and stuff like that. So this is basically just telling you, by creating a product every week, a lot of teams have a virtual background they share, but it's the process of creating it that helps a team to cooperate also in the daily work, to communicate, to be creative, and also to actually engage with the customers in a completely different way. Then I got to a new team, and this new team was a data science team, and I said, okay, let's try this. It worked out in a completely different way. I said, okay, we need to find a background, you need to browse. And we had absolute silence for 20 minutes. Like, okay, fuck, this stinks. But then somebody started to laugh. And he came up with a tune and placed some wording in it and said, okay, we don't use virtual machine as our production environment. For that week, two of the team members, they choose not to use the background. And I was kind of like, I was just about to correct them. And then I kind of realized, hey, who am I, the police? As a facilitator, my role is to book the meeting and let it roll. I participate on equal terms with everybody else in this creative process. And if somebody don't want to use it, it sure kind of like the team feeling in the virtual space, you don't get that. But for this team, who was very, very well, they had specific minds and some social skills that were lacking, but this actually improved their ability to communicate. This is one of the creations. I mean, they started broadcasting their retrospectives into the world by creating these backgrounds. This is one of them. I still use it whenever a PR planning is coming up. Now, here's another one. You are absolutely welcome to steal this one, but it's kind of like, okay, this is a problem. And when managers see this, they kind of like have to. It's a good, really powerful way of communicating. This background is a very special one because it's the first actually. Well, you see the point, right? But if you move your office chair, you go from this to this. So you can actually, by where you sit in front of the screen, you can choose whether you're happy or you're sad. And again, that promotes a discussion. Now, this is the champagne beer I told you about. They had just made a background with quotes they would remember me by. And then we had the star of the show, the champagne beer in the front. This is how it looks. It's kind of weird. If you look into a workplace environment, you see a lot of people, maybe not developers, but other people who they're wearing a blazers and a shirt and iron, and they look kind of nice because it matters. This is Transformers you have up here. Save the Earth is the only place with Transformers. I don't know how they came up with that because that was after my time. And down here we had the new team, and they had just collaborated with the Microsoft team that were leaving, so we went with this background. So it does something to the team. Now, what do you think of this? Is that something you could see work from your team, or something you would like to experiment with?
I think Rune wants you to unmute and share.
Huh?
I just said I think that you want people to unmute and share.
Absolutely. I think you should. I mean, I hope that some of you actually start doing this. There are a few things after Corona, though. Nowadays, people have social arrangements on Fridays, and they don't like to pick up their kids in kindergarten smelling of beer. So what I do nowadays is actually, instead of doing it as a Friday bar, we actually do it as the first thing Monday morning. Then we create a new background for the team. And we use it whenever we have virtual meetings. And it does stuff. I mean, if you are working virtually, are you approached as an individual or as a team? That's one question to ask yourself. Anybody here have a shared team background?
So until others find their unmute button, I can say that I've been working with teams that have had team backgrounds, but they were more standardized. We didn't change them. So other people joining could see where we were from, but
Yeah.
we didn't do much interaction with it, to be honest.
Now, the reason this works is this. Now, this guy is actually an old Greek philosopher, Aristotle, and now Google, they have a lot of teams, not just developer teams, but marketing teams, whatever teams. And they, a couple of years ago, they initiated a really large research on what is driving team performance. And Google is a company of data, so they started to analyze data, and they looked into what is the technical competence, or what is social background, age, whatnot. All the data they had, they started analyzing this. And after a year, they were none the wiser. They simply could not find any personal characteristics that had any measurable impact on team performance. There is no I in team, and this is kind of interesting, because the common perception is that if you just take a group, hire highly skilled people and place them in the team, magic happens. And what Google found, no, not necessarily. So you cannot just hire a team and expect them to perform. They don't. They started looking other ways and found that there are actually just two things that drives team performance. The first thing is communication patterns. Basically, you have various communication patterns in teams. A lot of teams suffer from the fact that some people don't communicate with other people, which means that you don't really get the collective brain engaged. And it is the collective brain that really is powerful when you want to create something. So you want to look into your team, and basically everybody needs to be heard every day if you want to be a high performance team. So you need to do something about that. This exercise is a great way of doing this, because people are starting on equal terms. I mean, regardless of your competence, browsing background and creating backgrounds, browsing pictures and statements and creating backgrounds is something that everybody can do and can participate in. And you communicate. This thing about me showing the Muppets and we ended up with We Hate Transformers is a good example. This would not have happened without communication. So it's a great way of exercising communication in a team. And the other thing that Google found drives team performance is this one: psychological safety. And basically, this exercise is also a psychological safe environment. There's a lot of laughing, and no background or picture is better than something else. But you actually have people asking, why did you choose that? And what does that mean? And then work along. What really matters when we're talking about psychological safety here is that instead of treating team members as competences, you need to treat them as whole people. Meaning, during this, you also got to get to know your teammates in terms of what matters in their lives, what's going on with the soccer team, cricket team, family, whatnot. All of this, so we actually got to know each other and like each other as a team. I think if you watch the European Championships in soccer and watch England play, that's a great example of this. You had some of the best, highest paid players in the world on the English national team. But what you could see really is that they were the eyes, and they didn't really get the communication and the safety part. They didn't really play as a team. So there is a certain muscle in terms of becoming a high performance team that you need to train. it's not just doing your daily work. You really need to actually work on how do I get to know my teammates, and how do we create some basic rules for how we communicate, where everybody gets to talk. So this is why this exercise is actually important, and why if you spend an hour a week on doing this, trust me, this will both in your daily work, but in general, will make your performance as a team increase, and will also make your job work a lot higher. That's at least my experience. I didn't come across this before. After this was made, but this is basically the theory behind why this exercise is quite important. And I guess this was what I had to share for this session.
Thanks for sharing that, Rune. Are you okay if we have any questions from the participants to answer those?
Yeah, sure.
Great. So, any thoughts from others on what Rune discussed here? Want to kind of ask into what went more into these teams, or any stuff else, or share what they have done?
I guess we haven't done much, but I had a team where we had the habit of each Monday we had some kind of oh, the weekend is over kind of backgrounds, kind of indicating what you did the last weekend or whatever you felt you wanted to share. And on Fridays we had the weekly team meeting where we kind of went into a more shallow mood by using other backgrounds, and have some people tried around and played with the ones available in Meet, I think it was at that time.
So it sounds a bit like this, maybe just a little bit less structured.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think compared to that, the thing, the rules of the game were that this was a time box to an hour. So there was a pressure you had to deliver a background product within an hour. And sometimes the creative process meant that you had something after 45 minutes that was shit. And basically you said, okay, we need to do it. So what's the least bad candidate? And we were just looking like shit for a week, and had to do better the week after. So this time pressure is actually, it has an interesting effect because teams also get under pressure. So how do you handle that? Is also part of it, I guess, reflecting on what you just said. There is one I just want to share actually. Let me see, because we actually had a hack at some point. This is, yes. Let's see. Now, all right. Microsoft Teams only supports that you share JPEGs, but as nerds go, they figured out a way that you can actually have a GIF as a background. I will strongly advise against it, because if you have a team of 8 people and you have the same background moving in different speeds from 8 people, that is super distracting. Nonetheless, this particular background that I will share in a moment here is probably the mother of all backgrounds, I think. Am I sharing now? Wait a minute, I'll just
Yes, you are.
I am okay. We'll do it again here. Where did I put it? Oh crap. Hang on a second. We went with this background. So this is somewhat disturbing during a meeting, but it just says that when you start exercising as a team, you also become better at doing this. And it's not just something that one person do; it's a shared exercise. Somebody found this, but what do we want to say with it and stuff like this. Plus, when in the beginning it might be a little awkward, but when you start doing this at a regular pace, you will start to have a lot of fun. I mean, this is fun. The whole creative process. How do you do this? So, as you can see, I'm pretty high on it. I hope that some of you will just steal with pride. I will share this presentation. I guess, Jan, you can just send it out with the video to everybody.
Yeah.
And I will include this Git merge as the last one. And then it's just book an hour, say we need to create a background and we need to wear it from next week. And you're good to go.
Cool. Jonas, you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, I'm just curious. I mean, I think this is obviously something that's great for building culture in a team. But what more did you do to kind of support this? Because this in itself is kind of setting the frames for things to emerge. But if the team's not interested, then obviously this only goes so far. And I imagine that with the second team you talked about, where it was a little slower to kind of pick up, what did you then do to help them find their way into it?
Well, to be honest, I don't think they were necessarily well. In the first time, unless you are on a Corona lockdown where you really need beer and somebody to laugh amongst, I think now I don't really think. Well, I think people. I cannot really imagine a team who won't spend an hour on creating a team background. They might struggle a little. I had 2 teams of Scrum Masters trying to do it. The Scrum Masters are horrible at it. The one team actually succeeded. They came up with a Superman image. That's the Scrum Man. The other team, they like to talk. And in this exercise, you don't talk unless you have a picture or a statement. So it is a non-verbal way of communication that works. I don't think what you need to do is you need to do it 2 times. And you say, let's try this 2 or 3 times. And if we don't like this particular event after 3 times, we change it to something else. But what you probably will realize is most teams, okay, fair enough, we have to create a virtual background. We can figure this out. Next time we have to do it again, something else come out of it. And with this team that was reluctant, I don't think they were reluctant. They were just a non-verbal team. I mean, they were definitely on the autism spectrum, every single one of them. So verbal communication was not their thing. So they started researching and browsing and not really sharing. But after the first time, when they had a background, then they kind of knew what was going to happen, and they became way better. I think the final product was, I mean, light years ahead of Transformers. I mean, they were the ones with the PI planning, with the looking for code time in between meetings, this Git merge and stuff like that. So I think it will be different. I mean, this is kind of like something, you can't have two teams doing it the same way. This thing about communicating in pictures, they will, depending on the team dynamics and people there, somehow it will evolve in ways you could never have imagined, which means that you should not facilitate it. You should state the mission. You have 1 hour. We need to create a shared background that we wear for the next week. This is the mission. The way you do it is that you browse the internet, set pictures, statement, whatnot as your background, share it in the chat so others can use the thing. What usually happens is that at some point somebody puts something up that somebody else starts to set as their background, and all of a sudden you have a favorite to win the race. You will usually have people keep on browsing, but this is how it works. It actually works in a democratic process in the sense that if people see something they like, they start sharing it, so you have more and more backgrounds looking the same. So don't own it. Just state the mission. You have 1 hour, and then you do the same as everybody else. And then you start the next week, get rid of the background and say, now we need to do it again. New background for the next week. We have an hour. Let's go.
Yeah, I think it was an interesting time during the lockdown. Jan and I were working, we were leading 2 different teams at that time. So our team, we came up with a similar thing, not quite as structured, but more we were using Slack back then. So we organized a virtual water cooler. So one person was manning that every week, and that was kind of on a rotation basis. And then we had a more voluntary, where we spent a little bit more time organizing an event, whether it was Kahoot or something virtual. But the weekly one was more like, someone coming up with an activity that we would do across the week. So it could be meeting bingo. That was a fan favorite. We did all sorts of things, treasure hunts and stuff like that. So I think it's a little bit in the same space, just different activities rather than kind of one that, and it doesn't show the team pride in the same way that you are kind of having the same background, but it definitely helped us because we formed during COVID as well.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Interesting times.
But this, definitely this thing about talking about, I think the important thing is not about beer. The important thing about is that the team muscle is something you need to exercise to become a better team. And this is a way of doing it. There are other ways of social stuff, but this combines this thing about psychological safe environment, about communication, everybody participate. And then you said team pride, for sure. It does something to team identity, but it's not the background. It's not the outcome. It's the process that's important here. All right. I guess, unless you have more questions, then I'll just update it and ship it to Jan, and you all get a copy.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much for sharing your insights and experience is what I was looking for, Rune. And thank you everybody for participating. As Rune said, as soon as I get the presentation, I will share that, and I will also share the recording.
Yeah. And if you choose to start doing it, don't let perfection be the enemy of good. This is why the time box is important. No, you will have weeks where your background is not really nice, but you use it anyway.
Yeah. Makes sense.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Meeting you.
Have a great day, everybody.